From the Millersville University Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kyle Elliott here with the medium range forecast and video discussion issued on Tuesday, January 20th. Well, obviously, all eyes are on the potential for a moderate to major winter storm, far-reaching winter storm, I should say, that could stretch from the south central United States all the way through the southeast, mid-Atlantic states, and perhaps the northeast from late this week into perhaps as late as early next week. However, at this point, I'm only going to speak in terms of potential, as there are still many variables that can change in association with this storm system. And again, it's still 5 to 6 days away, so a lot can still change. So as of right now, yes, the potential does exist for a moderate to major storm, but you certainly can't shovel potential. So without further ado, let me start by taking a look at the numerical computer models, and I'm going to be showing you the American GFS model today and the Canadian model, because these really are encapsulating the wide range of solutions. In fact, the Canadian model is essentially the model that's showing the system tracking the farthest north at this point, while the GFS is showing it suppressed to the south, and essentially the GFS doesn't give us a flake of snow here across the Lower Susquehanna Valley. So you can already see these differences starting to show up on Friday. I think there's two key factors here that are really going to essentially determine what the eventual outcome is. The first of which is this deep press of Arctic air behind this cold front on Friday. You'll already start to see some differences between the Canadian and the GFS by Friday afternoon. The Canadian model shows the Arctic cold front still to our north and west Friday afternoon, whereas the GFS shows that front already over or just to our south and east. So what does that mean? Well, the GFS is showing that deep pool of Arctic air pressing farther to the south and east than what the Canadian model is showing. So essentially, you're getting that suppressed solution from the GFS due to the cold air being too extreme or almost too cold and pressing too far to the south. The other factor that I want you to pay attention to is this upper level low that's over the eastern Pacific just to the south and west of Southern California on Friday afternoon. That is a disturbance associated with the southern branch of the jet stream. So these disturbances, again, can tap into that rich eastern Pacific, Gulf, and western Atlantic moisture. So that's why anytime you get a piece of energy in the jet stream's southern branch involved in the equation, the potential does exist for a bigger storm because it's able to tap into all that moisture from those different bodies of water. So you'll notice that by Friday afternoon, the Canadian and the GFS aren't too different, but if you pay really close attention, you'll notice that that upper level low on the Canadian is farther north and east than the GFS. And I think this is a key factor moving forward then into Saturday. You'll notice the Canadian takes that upper low and it already moves it eastward into Mexico and parts of the Four Corners region. Now, what you don't see here is that there is another upper level piece of energy that's going to be diving southward through the northern Rockies, northern plains, and it's what the Canadian shows is that that piece of energy is going to phase or join forces with that upper level low within the jet stream's southern branch. But if you look at the GFS model, what you'll notice here is that that upper level low is actually still over the eastern Pacific in Baja California Saturday afternoon. Essentially, it gets left behind by that piece of energy within the jet stream's northern branch, so they never end up phasing or joining forces. As a result, I'll jump ahead to the next frame of the GFS here on Sunday. What you'll notice is there really is no big storm system. It's essentially a strung out, discombobulated mess. So you've got these little pieces of energy that are essentially shooting out across the southeastern United States, but you don't get one big consolidated storm system. Whereas if you look at the Canadian for Sunday afternoon, the model that does show those systems joining forces, you have a major nor'easter essentially that is developing and intensifying off the mid-Atlantic coastline, and then that would make that turn up the eastern seaboard and attack that fresh cold air mass in place. So by the time you look at Sunday afternoon, again, the GFS has all the wintry precipitation suppressed south of Washington, D.C., while the Canadian model shows the entirety of the mid-Atlantic states getting hit hard by a moderate to major snowstorm. So at this point, again, we're just talking in terms of potential. There's a wide range of possibilities, so you're just going to have to check back in later this week as I finesse the details and the models come into a consensus about what exactly is going to happen here and unfold over the weekend into early next week. By Monday, obviously the models are going to have big differences. As I mentioned, the Canadian, which has the consolidated storm system, shows a major winter storm unfolding across not only the mid-Atlantic states, but also pretty much the entirety of the northeastern U.S., whereas the GFS, again, it just has a strung out mess, and there's really not much wintry precipitation at all in the mid-Atlantic states. It's a southern special on the GFS because that deep cold air mass just suppresses all the energy to the south. The systems never phase, and the system goes harmlessly out to sea, at least harmlessly, for our area here in the Lower Susquehanna Valley in southeastern PA. So that's what we have to keep our eyes on over the next few days, and I'll be able to finesse those details a little better in tomorrow's special weather discussion, and then provide an update late this week on another special weather discussion on Friday, and a short-term video either Thursday or Friday. So taking a look at the medium range forecast, as of now, brisk and cold on Friday with a mix of clouds and sun, high 34. Bitterly cold on Saturday with intervals of clouds and sunshine, high 18. Cloudy and frigid on Sunday with periods of snow, high 16. At this point, I am leaning a little bit more toward the Canadian and the European models, but again, it's certainly not a lock. So looking forward then into Monday, mostly cloudy with a chance of snow, highs in the upper teens to perhaps 20 degrees. Well, that'll do it for this edition of the medium range forecast. Tune back in later this week for an update. Until then, stay warm out there over the next few days and just stay tuned to the Millersville Weather Center for updates.